Greetings, gamers. Tim here again today. And over the last week, it's been pretty rough. The Sunday, yesterday, I was busy, so I didn't get around to doing the 13th. And now I'm doing the 13th and the 14th video as one, so bear with me. And the kicker for now, for RPGADAY for the 13th, is describe a game experience that changed how you play. Now, I played a lot of games, and I've had a lot of good, positive experiences. But one of the ones that made the biggest impact to me was over 20 years ago. And a friend was running a second edition D&D game. It was a solo game. I was the only player. I did have support NPCs that would come in from time to time, but I was a first level fighter. I was an elf. I was playing up the knightly thing, because at that point in time, second edition, I'm just a fighter. Their kits hadn't come out, I don't think, but I was playing a knight in my head. So, and I got involved in, there were monsters attacking the edge of the village. And it turns out that they were raiding the local vintner. And they were kobolds, they were little monsters, they were not particularly, in D&D's scheme of things, supposed to be all that tough or all that dangerous back then. They were more a nuisance. But as a group, they became a threat. Now, the catch was, of course, that I, being a knight, wanted to find out what was going on. I didn't just assume that they were immediately evil and go, riding through their camp and trying to kill them all, because I heard some things in town about the vintner's stinginess with his money. And so I ended up, even though I think they tried to attack me with sling stone, I was armored well enough that most of them couldn't hit me. And so I asked to talk to them. And the kobolds agreed. The kobolds and I got together and we were talking to each other. And we discussed why they were attacking this vintner, because that was the only person being attacked. Only him and people trying to work for him. And even then, they weren't trying to kill anybody. They were just trying to drive them off. Well, it turns out that they had been hired to pick grapes and help make wine and work for this vintner. But he'd been paying them subsistence wages, and they asked for more because he was making a fortune, but he wasn't putting it back into his business, into his employees. And that made me realize a couple of things. Now, you got to understand, I have never been a GM who, for the most part, says, here's a race that's absolutely evil. That's it. There was never a good member of this race. Now, there are settings where I have done so, where I have created particular bad guys that are unredeemably evil, and they're meant to be. They are meant to literally be so corrupted by the natures that they are just puppets or, rabid for any other sense of the word. They're just rabid. There's nothing else you can do to save them. Is that they are a being born rabid, or the equivalent thereof, without magical cure. There is no solution to what they are. They simply are a dangerous enemy to be destroyed. But in this one, my friend had followed a lead. I had shown him a little bit before, and we role played it out. And it became one of the first times that I realized that you can make a rather interesting encounter without combat. And at the time, I usually like to have combat in my games. And nowadays, it's, I enjoy occasional fisticuffs, but I like bloody violence, killing monsters, way less than I used to. The older I get, the less I like it. And the more I become fond of games where other solutions are possible. But then again, there are times when you just want to shoot a stormtrooper. You just want to punch a Nazi out. And you just want to stab a evil monster in the eye. Because that is an escapist thing that you are enjoying. I don't enjoy it as much as I used to, that kind of play. I have friends who do. I have friends who, without combat, probably would not be playing a particular role-playing game. But I have also run games where combat was extremely limited. And it all ties back to that one game session that my friend ran. The my player character was a knight, an elven knight, who, dealt with a problem by talking it out and standing up for the people who are wrong in the scenario, who happened to be kobolds. And it was back then that I realized that just because the rule book says something is evil doesn't mean you have to make it evil. You don't have to make this encounter about good versus evil. You can. You could make it about law versus chaos in D&D. But that's less common than good versus evil. And there are times when people just want to punch evil in the face or stab it in the eye or whatever. But I have a tendency these days to want to take the less traveled path of trying to resolve the situation without having to resort to violence. That is one of the things that I like to play as Rangers, especially back in the days when Animal Empathy was one of their, second edition. Animal Empathy was one of their special abilities because that allowed me to, prevent a fight between us and wolves that were just hungry. We were able to calm down the lead wolf and share some food and go hunt down a deer together and generally just, get along as much as a wild animal and a person could. But it boils down to, it made me reconsider my gaming over. I still don't mind playing superheroes who punch a bad guy. But sometimes my bad guys are just misguided. Sometimes they're angry at the world for the wrong reasons. Sometimes they're angry at the world for the right reasons. I have one villain who once tried to take over the televisions of the entire world because he felt that they were not educational enough. And one of my friends said, that's why I like this villain. I like him being our villain because despite him wanting to take over and rule the world, he will do these side things like, here, have some educational television. Sure, I'm forcing it on everybody in the world that has television, but, you deserve it. But at the end, it showed me that there are other alternatives to just fights. There are other ways to have action than just fight. I can tell you the number of times I put people up against floods and fires and all sorts of just normal, dangerous events that were action-based without having an enemy, a physical enemy, a person enemy, or a monster enemy to fight. I have had at times enemies that were misunderstood. And if the players took time to understand them, they could have recharted a course between them and the monster. And that has happened more than once. And it showed me that gaming didn't have to be about violence. And the older I get, the less I care for violence in role-playing games. It's not that I'm not into some action. I like swinging across chandeliers and, demanding them unhand the virtuous girl, the unvirtuous evil man, and, fighting him into a corner. But he doesn't have to die. Go to prison, maybe. Uh, Suffer a little, maybe. Uh, be thrown out of town for sure. We just don't need that negativity. Get out. Uh, but sometimes talking is a solution that I encourage in my game, which is sometimes a challenge because I do have players that particularly they do like a little bit of their violence. But I have a friend now who runs games, and when he runs them online, some of them have no violence at all. And I love that. I love just, we have these amazing adventures that a weapon is never drawn. I even had one character freak out, chase down, roaring fury at this NPC over what it had done. And it's definitely an it. It was neither a he nor a she because they don't have gender as we understand it until they grow up. And I terrified the poor little thing. And I was doing it because he basically overloaded my character's senses. My character was sneezing and coughing and all this other stuff. And I wanted to show the anger, but about halfway through, I realized I was doing it more just for the enjoyment of seeing the person somewhat reticent for their actions. They ended up on our starship, so I don't know how that happened. But it did, and they're on our starship, and they hid under the deck plates for a while because they thought I was going to eat them. My character wouldn't eat them; they're not crunchy enough. But it was more I was having a joke. He pulled a joke on me that actually really hurt my character because of his enhanced senses. And I'm also blind. So, I'm blind, but all my other senses are acute in that particular game. And so my character was really bad for about a second. And then once I realized I had scared the creature off, I just played up the terrible monster aspect to, return the favor, so to speak. Which does not necessarily mean my character was being good at that point. But for the record, and this is in general, it's okay to have bad guys to punch. It's okay to have bad guys to shoot and kill in some games. But not everybody likes that. Not everybody wants that. However, I'm going to come out unequivocally, and at the end of this video, because I'm going to do 14 as a separate one, because this one's already 13 minutes long. Punch Nazis. Punch fascists. I'm sorry to say that we have to come to the point where somebody has to say it aloud. Those are not the kind of people we want in our society. So get out. Leave. If you don't like the fact that American laws give equality to everybody, you leave the country. Don't ask us to send other people out because we're happy with them. I don't care what their skin color is. I don't care what their religion is, as long as it's not harmful. Okay, if their religion is hurting people, that's a little bit different story. But as long as their religion is not hurting anybody, I'm good with them staying in this country. And there are millions of Muslims, who are peaceful people. And there are millions of Christians who are peaceful people. But there are also some that should be punched in the face because they're Nazis or fascists or whatever. And I don't care what your social status is, whether you're rich, whether you're poor, I think we should be more egalitarian about that in terms of taxes and things. Like, when you have billions of dollars, how many billions more do you need? I mean, really. But I don't want to get into that big long argument on that kind of thing today. So I'm going to keep it short. It is okay to punch Nazis. It is okay to punch Nazis in a game. It is okay to punch Nazis in real life, although there will be repercussions, I'm sure, if you would just go out and assault someone. So don't take that as I'm telling you to assault someone. I'm not. But stand up for the freedoms this country was built on. And the freedoms this country was built on is written in the Constitution and the Declaration of Independence. And the Declaration of Independence says all men are created equal. All men. And being that it's patriarchal language, we can extend that to be all men and women, or all women, are created equal, regardless of skin color, regardless of religion, regardless of, all these other things. We gotta work together to have a country worth being in. And it's time to get the dysfunctional ones out, because you are a small minority. 77% of the people in this country are white. A huge number of them are Christian, but it's only a very small minority are a complete waste of time and worthless hot air that they blow out and hatred that they blow out. I'm not saying hate anyone. I'm saying love people, but love them enough to tell them either straighten up your life or get out of this country. Because hating people in this country is wrong. It's built for everyone. And we need to make sure we spread that back to the Native Americans who are here first. Make sure they get their rights too. I mean, I'm a mutt. My ancestors come from all over the world, mostly Europe, but Europe as in France, Germany, Spain, Britain, Ireland, Scandinavia. It's funny though that when it says European, it also includes England. That when it says English and Irish, it just says the UK. So when you get those little charts from DNA places, yeah, it amuses me. It amuses me that there's like this one little, way off over here, I have this one ancestor that's completely outside the European sphere. I mean, it's got to be one ancestor. It's less than 1% DNA. But those tests really aren't that accurate. So take them with a grain of salt. Peace, good gaming. And yes, I still feel it's okay to punch Nazis in games. And at least try and talk about their idiocy in real life.